It has been my pleasure actually to be associated with SRIVT and to get this opportunity to speak about ancient lessons for modern integrated education. And what I'm going to do is go through a series of slides, and at the end, I will be happy to answer questions or make some comments. Well, the world that I work with is in chemistry, and one of the areas of my research has been Bhasma. That's something that is closely connected to SRIVT. And my research really journey started in early 2000s, maybe 2003 or 4, when I was the director of Center for Indic Studies at the University of Massachusetts, and American government and scholars basically talked about Bhasma as a danger because it has metal in it. So I got contacts from some people to see whether I can do something, and the only thing I could do was do some research. And so the first thing I started knowing my whatever little knowledge I had about Sanskrit to find out what really Bhasma means. It is normally translated as ash. But when I really looked at it, I did my own etymology of it, and Bha means prakash or light, and Ma means to stop, rokna in Hindi or in Sanskrit. So that means, Bhasma is something that is that its light has been prevented or stopped, and light in this case I translated as a toxicity. So concern in the modern chemistry or medical science about Bhasma because it has metal in it is a valid, but Bhasma is not just metal. It has been processed. So that's very important thing to know. So we did some research. I had a student who did her PhD in this field. We looked at cytotoxicity. We just used a regular nanoparticles from silver, and that was very toxic. But when we used nanoparticles that were Bhasma, they were not toxic at all, as you can see. We did further experiment actually with this, and then we learned that actually this is a deep biochemistry and molecular biology that is going on, and it acts as a bioenhancer, means it really helps other drugs to get into the system. And the whole mechanism we have worked out, not completely, but at least in the beginning, we know what kind of proteins it interacts with and what it does. So it's really a very subtle and deep biological process rather than just simply saying that this is metal and it is toxic. So that's the area of research I began. And then I did some more research of what is really the overall application. So even silver nanoparticles are in society, in this world, is not just, we're not talking about Bhasma, we're talking about just nanoparticles. Nanomedicine has become a very big deal. Nanoparticles are being used for a variety of things. So even silver nanoparticles, the field is pretty wide open and lucrative. There is a risk even in this area, $2.5 billion industry in 2022, because it can be used for electronics and various other things. I looked up the overall nanoparticle industry. It is expected to be $51 billion industry. If you just think about it, worldwide wheat market today is only about 6 billion. So people can eat food, which is only 6 billion, but this nanoparticle industry is a very huge. And if you really compare that with agricultural sector today, agriculture is very, very little, it's only about 14% of the GDP. But this Bhasma technology, because it has or nanoparticle technology that can be developed through agricultural plants, and that can become a huge market for farmers. And I got this inspiration actually from Dr. Bala, who actually is so happened that he visited my laboratory. I think it was in 2017, because I had done some work, and that the work was something that he came to know from somebody. I'm not exactly sure where Dr. Bala Sastry came to know, but he came to visit my lab, and because he had heard, maybe he had seen some of my publications, and he talked about how he is able to make these nanoparticles very differently, very efficiently. The one nanoparticles I was not making, I was just buying it. And that has a process of several, maybe over a month. Traditionally, how Ayurvedic people make bhasma. But he said he can make it in few hours. I didn't believe it. I really actually visited Guntur to see it, whether they can show it to me. And he did. I had only an afternoon, and he really had everything ready. Copper. He showed me copper bhasma, and he mixed everything. And then in front of me, I could see the nanoparticles appear. I still didn't believe it. So I said, well, I have to see the whole thing, because I didn't know what else he has added in it. So of course, that time I had my flight back, so I couldn't stay. But next, I said I will come back again. The next time I went for 3 days and made him do everything in front of me. And he did. And it's the same process. Again, when he mixed everything, in just 2 hours, you could see the nanoparticles. So I'm very impressed that, and that too more, because he's nothing to do with chemistry at all. He's not even Sanskrit scholar. He's just an astrologer, but he knows Sanskrit very well. So I asked him, and he said that he really got this knowledge by reading Sanskrit texts. And he told me something that I didn't know, that there are six meanings of Sanskrit literature that is in India. And one of them is Ausadhi meaning, or means the medicinal meaning, and which is what he was interpreting. So I'm amazed and really impressed by his determination, knowledge, and practice. And so I'm very, very pleased to be associated with SRIVT. And actually, we have signed an MOU. My institute has signed an MOU with that institution, and I've been associated since then. Now, what I want to talk about, that ancient education system for modern education system. How can we learn from ancient education system? I want to give you an example here of a history professor, Timothy Walker, in the University of Massachusetts. He studied Portuguese history. India had Portuguese had a colony in India, that's Goa, and he said he told that how Portuguese learned this Ayurvedic technology from India, and how they used to acquire great influence in the world, including they actually colonized Brazil, which is the only Portuguese-speaking country in in America, actually, and they made tons of money by using the knowledge, Ayurvedic knowledge of Indian traditional medicines, including, I'm assuming it, including bhasma. But the scientific community doesn't exactly really get it or appreciate it, as you can see in this article, Searching for Science in India's Traditional Medicine. But actually says this is this quixotic quest. It's not very complimentary. It seems like you're making yourself fool or something like that. But India has had really very strong economic contribution in the world. Actually, at one time, not just before the British came, actually, India had nearly 1/4 of the world's economy. And obviously, because technologies were involved. So I think it's important to understand that this is not just simply a talk, it's a reality. Now, how I want to just take you briefly to how the evolution happens and how the man and plants are evolved. Genetics is normally used for a basis for evolution. And so without really belaboring the whole issue because of the shortage of time, I would like to say that human, for example, genome has 3 billion base pairs. Bacteria has only 5 million base pairs, but bacteria has 80% efficiency. Humans have only 1.4% efficiency. So just to give a sense of how we should be looking, not just the size of the genome. Humans have only 30,000 genes. Plants have 50,000 genes. So plants actually have more genes. And the onion has 6 times more DNA. Fern, which is also a kind of plant, has 3,000 times more DNA. So they have really tremendously more advantage. And I wouldn't go in detail as to how, like polyploidy and other things, how they are able to manage their environment, other things. But the point is that it seems like environment is awfully more complicated and has a lot more in its bag to be able to use this to deal with the environment. And so, and whereas the human beings basically live artificial life and they do not have that much of opportunity to grow and evolve. So if you really think about from that criteria, actually humans are probably least evolved. We can always appreciate something that has been part of India's tradition. So plants, like I said, have polyploidy, that they can deal with environmental changes much better than we as human beings. And also plants have been there much longer, more natural and most independent. So plants actually are very good source of knowledge as well as technology. And this is what at least Indian Ayurveda community and herbal medicine community has used it. And Dr. Sastry has also utilized that from his Sanskrit knowledge. There are a lot of problems, a lot of hopes, of needs of and expectations of youth today in the entire world, whether it's related to career or freedom or harmony, stability, all that. And how do we go about it? Well, educational enterprise. They have a campus, faculty, administration, staff, students. This is how they are managing. And they are now making multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. I mean, something that I also am taking advantage because of being a chemist. I used the Ayurvedic knowledge to chemistry. So it's a very rewarding to all of us in that sense. Education in USA, there are over 50 million students in elementary and secondary schools. And then there is a various different kind of groups that they have. In fall of 2015, some 20 million students were expected to attend American colleges and universities. So, in the world, 131 million students in higher education and expected to double by 2025. So it will be more like 200 or 300 million students. 8 million students study abroad. It's a very lucrative market because people pay tuition fees. On the other hand, what is education, for example, in India versus in the Western world? I think it's important to pay attention to that. I give you 2 examples here. Mahatma Gandhi was known as father of nation, and Thomas Jefferson is also known as American founding father. There they have very different kind of requirements or view. Citizenry is vital. The education for citizenry is very vital requisite for our survival as a free people. Now they say that any person born after that day should ever acquire the rights of citizenship. So it is required for being a citizen until he could read and write. Why? Because they can read and write the rules. So that's very important from Western point of view. On the other hand, from Eastern point of view, actually this is a quotation of Huxley that Mahatma Gandhi does. So that man, I think, has had a liberal education, who has been so trained in youth that his body is the ready servant of his will and does with ease and pleasure all the work that as a mechanism it is capable of. It's basically it's a self-growth versus social growth is an important aspect from these two. Global expenditure is very high. We are talking about trillions of dollars being spent for education. $2.5 trillion, according to one estimate, in 2005. And one of the major part of this education system is books. And since the revolution of books, where people can easily find books, or can read, or can be read, or can be taught, and then can be tested. It's just the books are the issues. Before that, it wasn't books, it was the teachers. And whether it's in Eastern world or the Western world, they were still teachers. But either in the Western world, it still is a book, because their Bible is the book. They are people of the book. And that was the first thing that they started having education about, learning about the books. But now, in modern world where everything is online, so future of America education, they think it's not going to be in classrooms. Actually, higher education, this bubble is bigger than the student loans. Basically, they are very much concerned about it. And say college, new challenge, keeping students in school, because students don't sit in the school because they can just get information online with the computers, on their phones. So it is becoming a challenge. And this is about 10 years ago story. Now, obviously, it is well known that the students are learning online a lot more and by themselves. Whether right or wrong, that's another issue. So one has to be, if you want to become a global leader of your different kind of education, you have to go global. And one of the things that I was happy to be involved with, that I took American teachers to India to learn about Indian education system. Although we are talking about modern education system, but they were also able to be exposed to ancient education system, because different traditions still follows to a certain degree, whether it's Buddhist or Hindus or Sikhs or Jains. So I have some experience, and this was very exciting to all of them. And why go global? Because it says in Mahopanishad that the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam idea, Ayam Bandhurayam Neti Garana Lagchetasam, Udara Charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. If you want to make the whole world as a family, education is the key. And the future of college is online, as I said, and it's cheaper. But here is the about $10 trillion by 2030. They're expecting global education to be. So it is not only Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, but also Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam from the point of view of business. Education is a business if you can bring it out. And also it a huge influence, not just the money business, but the influence that you can have on people and on the environment, the society, stability. Corona created some opportunities. And this is a Corona tree when Corona happened. But the basic reason I want to show it here is that it says virtual education. I'm sorry, the slide didn't come out that well here. Something went wrong. But virtual education for all is what I think Corona forced us to do, because we had to do the classes online. What are the educational issues facing humanity? Training versus teaching. Do we just train people to do certain things, or really we teach them so that they can do it by themselves? Learning and living. Can they learn and then live like that? The cost of education is very high. Creativity versus competition. There is a lot of competition in today, whether it's civil services or getting jobs or getting into the market. And also slavery versus self-realization. So if you are learning for yourself, by yourself, then you are independent, you realize yourself. But otherwise, you just act like a slave for somebody else telling you what to do. So India has a huge young population, about 600 million, more than that. Now, okay, this is data from 2018. So it can use that to make an influence in the international market, as well as the whole humanity. And hurdles are, of course, you have to create a system, because system is something else. Economics and business has to be modified. But the opportunities are really humongous, because you have technology, pedagogy, and concepts. If you can have, then they can make you the difference. So what is in the process from India's perspective? You have instruction through teachers, acharya and guru. These are different concepts than what we have, professors and deans and whatever else. Place of learning is school versus nature, because now we have buildings and we teach in the schools, but the Indian system is more like natural. University ranking, you have library, you have teacher-student ratio, publications, known to others. These are the criteria that people rank university. But the students performance is the really criteria for Indian system, where the guru used to be known through their students. Vedic system, what we have knowledge in Akas Tattva or element or the ether element, learning with nature, experiential learning rather than just bookish learning, and union with the universe, Asato ma sadgame, Tamaso ma jyotirgame, Mrityor ma amritam game. So you learn when from untruth or ignorance to the truth, and then from the dark or ignorance to light or knowledge, and then you become immortal in terms of knowledge. So education enterprise, like I said earlier, but here in this model, in Indian model, you can have everything else here, but it will be holistic, not just interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, but you have to be holistic. You have to be part of it. And that's the way these things happen. Now, Indian system considers mother as the first guru, who's is a foundation, and is introduces to the father. Father means, beyond your mother's lap. And father is the next guru who expands your horizon, introduces to the acharya. It is very important to start this education at home. And then acharya is the final guru, and his ultimate knowledge gives, and introduced to the Brahm, means the whole Brahman, the whole universe. So that's your journey for knowledge, and you can do everything else in that sense. So you have to think about what is acharya versus guru, what is professor versus upadhyaya, what is teacher versus shikshak. These things are really important things. I'll try to set some light on some of these things, but obviously because of the shortage of time, I would not be able to elaborate. But then you can study so many aspects, engineering to language. And to give some idea, Manu Smriti has written about mother. Is very important to know that yatra nariyasya pujante ramante tatra devata, means where the women are so great that they will be worshipped. That's where all the gods are around. That's where all the gods roam around. So it is important. Sometimes people misunderstand that. They think that every woman should be respected. No, the real meaning is every woman should be respectable, and then only she can be guru for a student. Wherever the women are not respected, or they do not get opportunity to be respected, then that family or that country or that world is not going to be happy, or will not be able to prosper. So it's very important that we think about that. And then finally, I wanted to say something about Acharya and Guru. It's an important thing to know that it says Upadhyayan and Dasacharya, Acharyanam Satam Pita, Sahastram tu Pitrum Mata, Gauraven Atirichyate. It means a professor or teacher is 10 of them are equivalent to one Acharya, means somebody who teaches you by showing experience, giving experience. And a father is 100 times better or more useful or worth than Acharya. 100 times, 100 Acharyas are equivalent to one father. And there are 1,000 fathers are equivalent to one Mata or mother. So mother is the learning very beginning, the learning at the very beginning, from the womb to whatever, 6, 7, 8 years, until the child is able to go out and deal with the father. It's the mother who builds the foundation. So this is the very important ancient tradition that we need to follow in today's world. Universities, I wouldn't go really that much in detail, but I wanted to point this out. The universities that have been created, they were initially, even though it means the whole or the totality, but when it was, if you really look at the etymology of kul, because it's just like what we talk about Gurukul. Kul means also the total, completely, but it is completely comes from the Guru. So etymology of Kul also means total, and everything, the whole family, the whole the lineage. So they have similarity in there. But then otherwise, the university foundations were created by the church and the mosques, and they were only teaching the books. So current system that we have of instruction and the knowledge and the education is really based on the books and teaching, not the totality. So even though university also means that, but the Gurukul Parampara or the tradition is totally, as an Acharya and Guru, is very different than just somebody who teaches as a teacher. So it's very important that we understand that. And then the academic freedom or academic tradition that has been created was created by a philosopher by the name of Plato, where the academia was considered where whatever he was teaching. And there's a great history about that. We need to understand his guru, that was Socrates, who was really the guru at that time, and he would not compromise on anything, and he will teach young people with no money, without any other expectation. So I think with that tradition, if we bring it today and combine with Indian tradition of knowledge, I think that will be a very useful thing for the youth and in the world. And that tradition, like I said, there is a book revolution, but then before that, it was a guru who was teaching everybody individually. And what you need to do in that journey for today, how do we adopt it for today? You have to individual, family, social, economic, political, philosophical, technology, environment, all these things have so many situations. And what we need to do is observations and contemplations. Then we read and listen also. Then combine with that, come up with concepts. And then you create some physical, chemical, social, all kind of models, and learn in action. Stories can be very useful because stories are real. If the stories, I don't mean the make-up stories. And then you practice it. You do the action. You have to have the conduct. Then you have a self-learning, self-realization and self-learning. Now, in virtual world today, which is in a way you can call it Maya, Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. So virtual is really just a Maya, but it is an efficient, inexpensive or free, more social, less physical, faster with text, social media, needs words, expressions. You spend about 15 hours, take classes in a week. So you're 168 hours you're basically wasting. You can have mutual interaction like music, better face expression if you are in person, cognition. These things are very important compared to the virtual. But there is a way you can deal with those virtual things. They can be adapted, and we are creating something. And Dr. Sastry has created his institution and this connection, interaction with the various agencies, universities, and colleges and institutions. But can we create this natural in the real world at home? Can they learn by sitting at home? And that is something, a challenge for us to do. And there have been people mentioned that there have been universities before in India, for example, Nalanda University, but actually Nalanda was not a university. This is some of the copycatting that makes mistakes. Nalanda was a Mahabihara, where Buddhist monastery, which also served as a center for learning, but with practice. It's very important to know. So it's easy to say, but we also have university, but university is very different. Even these words, chancellor, vice chancellor, all these things are really coming from the church traditions, not from the guru tradition that we have in India. And guru considered that to be a part of family, and students become more important than even their own children for a guru. So that is the kind of tradition we need to understand. And, this is, Nalanda has been supported in last 15 years with different, it is already an international, if we can use the same system that we had before. Indonesia, Australia, Laos, Thailand, China, Singapore, Japan, all these people have contributed with money to revive Nalanda, but not as a university that has been system that has been adopted, but as a Gurukul model. If they created that, I think that will definitely get India on the map of international education, and something that we need to think about doing. And that happens like you need to learn, you fix your mind, realize, learn, and ultimately you do a scientific approach of conducting. You have to conduct. And I hope that Srimaharshi, in the leadership of Dr. Sastry, Bala Sastry, will lead this way through his conferences and through his training and through his collaboration, including my institution is connected with them. I look forward to working this more and for the service of the young people and the society. Thank you very much.